Hello guys, welcome back to another episode of Go Ahead Play My Game. The format is I select a game that I know Stephen hasn't played and try to convince him to play it, and he selects a game he knows I haven't played and tries to convince me to play it, and at the end we choose which is the better option for our listeners to play, basically.
Accurate.
We've done 4 or 5 of these, so we're getting it down to pat. So Steve, what do you want to recommend to me today?
Well, can I ask you a question before I say anything at all? Do you like to laugh? Okay,
well,
no.
that should answer.
Because this is a game that I played when I was younger, and it is one of the funniest games I've ever played. So if you were looking for a game that actually makes you crack down and breaks your bollocks laughing, this is the one for you.
I think I know what it is. Manhunt 2.
Close. It's Schindler's List Tactics. This is a game called Kingdom O' Magic. Have you ever heard of it?
Kingdom O' Magic?
Yeah.
What did it come out on?
It came out on the PC and nothing else.
Okay, no.
It came out on the PC in 1996, and I don't think anybody in the world played it except for me, but it is a phenomenal game. You've never heard of it?
No, I don't think so.
It's important to know that it's Kingdom O' Magic, not Kingdom of Magic, O' Magic. That whimsical nature runs the whole way through.
Yeah,
that
they
game.
haven't got time for Fs.
Oh, hell no. So this is a Lord of the Rings parody, and it's kind of similar to my last one. It's kind of based on, if you like such a game, you'll like this. I think if you like Monkey Island, you'll probably like this. Okay. But it's a little different because whereas Monkey Island, I think it's very American broad humor in a way. It's kind of like if Monkey Island was Saturday Night Live, this is more like Monty Python's Flying Circus.
Oh, okay.
It's very surreal humor. It's very bizarre. It was developed by a company called Ski, SCI. They had a bunch of really weird games, like really obscure ones. The one they're most famous for are the Carmageddon games. Do you know them?
Yeah, I do know the Carmageddon games. Yeah, they're sort of like a Twisted Metal type violent explosion game. Yeah.
And the important thing to note is this game is nothing like that at all. Whatsoever.
Diversity.
Like they did a bunch of really weird ones. Like they did the original Shinobi, which is something.
Oh wow, okay.
They did Narc. Do you know that game? It's a big famous arcade game. Well, it's not that.
Oh, as in narcotics.
Yeah. Few other ones that jumped out to me. They did the Constantine game. They did the Futurama game on PS2.
Okay. Wow, that's like a list of the Game of the Year.
Yeah, right. They're all kind of mediocre games. There's one called the Conflict series. Do you know them?
No.
Yeah, I think they were like tactics or something. They had one game that I really like called Gender Wars, which is it's a tactical game where you can literally choose to play as the patriarchs or the matriarchs, and it's literally you fight as men or women and you're just fighting each other.
That game could not come out this year.
No, and the thing is, I thought this would be huge. When I was looking this up, I was like, wow, I'm sure there's like loads of reports on this. Nobody has said anything about this game. It's like completely like nothing. Okay. So it's like we're gonna have to do a whole video on that at some stage. Like it's absolutely unreal. But this game it's sort of a point and click.
That's exactly what I thought when you said humorous game. Can I just sort of make that point? Yeah. When you said, do you like to laugh? I thought, okay, this is going to be a point and click game. It's weird that that's like so embedded in that genre.
Yeah, I mean, with point and click games, you really do have to. It either has to be deeply emotional or hilarious. So,
exactly.
You can't. I played one recently. Have you ever heard of a game called Deponia?
I think you told me about it, yeah.
It's neither emotional or like I think it tries to be funny, but it's just really not. So it's one of the most bland point and clicks I've ever played. It can be really remember that one that we played, Machinarium?
Oh yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, like again, not really emotional, it just had a really cool art style.
A cool vibe, yeah.
Yeah, but all the best point and clicks, I think, generally speaking, are really, really funny. Like I think Monkey Island is probably one of the best ever made.
Discworld and stuff like that, Full Throttle.
But this is one of the ones that I always grouped with that. And it was weird because when we got older and I started talking to you and other people about games, most people would have heard of Monkey Island and some people would have heard of Discworld, but no one had heard of Kingdom of Magic. It was so bizarre. It has a weird sort of claymation art style. And yeah, I'm trying to think of a way to actually, do you know a good way to sum it up is I remember one thing I always remember really clearly is the manual is it's almost like a mini joke book. It's not even a manual like per se. It's the first thing, the very first sentence you read in the manual is first published in 1876 under the title 101 Fun Things to Do with Trolls. However, the version on CD-ROM is specially calibrated for short people with red hair. So that'll give you a good idea of the kind of batshit insane stuff that you like do in this. So
racist against Irish people.
Slightly, yeah. It's
we are very ginger.
We exceptionally so. I mean, you've even got a little bit in your beard, so yeah.
I know.
It's so like the whole thing, it is a point and click adventure. It's interesting in that unlike most point and click adventures, you can choose between 3 quests to do. So like it's kind of like in a way, like even though the play style is the exact same, in a way it's like 3 games in one.
3 mini or shorter games.
Yeah, like you have a different objective in each quest. Like if I remember it right, there's the good old fashioned traditional quest, that's the actual title, where you have to rescue the dragon, steal the princess, and kill the treasure. Okay. That is literally how they describe that.
Kill the treasure.
Yeah, there's also the bizarre and slightly twisted quest.
Okay.
Which the player must find the lost lava lamp of the ancient and defeat the Dark Lord. Who is like Sauron via Michael Caine. Like it's basically no, it's like
a Cockney Sauron.
No, legitimately, like it's a Minotaur, but he speaks in a way that always reminded me of Michael Caine. Like he's a really like posh accent, but like slightly Cockney.
Okay.
And finally, there's the magnificent 7-Eleven quest.
Okay.
Where you have, and this always threw me when I was playing the game. You have to find and recruit 7 2-11 characters for the kingdom in order to protect Flaketown from an upcoming invasion. Flaketown is a spin on Lake Town from The Hobbit, in case you didn't know.
You love your puns. This is
I am down with puns. You know, it's they're just great. But yeah, so it is again, it's very, very based in humor. This is something similar to the last one that I was having. I'm big on humor. I love that kind of thing in my games, and this always made me laugh. I'm gonna tell you what. I have a list here, right? Here's just a couple of things that happen in this game. And I'm just going to throw them at you in quick succession, if that's okay.
Do it.
So, first of all, the prologue features a spaceship shaped like a toilet going into hyperspace. Which it does so by flushing.
Of course, yeah.
You can trick a giant into thinking the corpses of giant spiders are raisins so that she'll bake them into a birthday cake.
Classic game mechanic right there.
You can, one of my favorite moments, you call a water elemental a dribbly bastard. You can literally die of boredom talking to an old woman and have to restart the game like after she has bored you to death with her ramblings. You can see a flashback of the Gorgon's previous life as a pop singer along with her sisters Mabel and Phyllis. You can doorbell ditch the Dark Lord, the one who sounds like Michael Caine.
That's fantastic.
Until he literally like raises an army to ban you from ringing.
Is that like the mechanic? Like, is that how you pass that area?
Yeah, you have to keep ringing his doorbell and running away.
That's class.
You can cast a spell on people. You can cast a spell on people that makes them think they left the stove on, causing them to leave the room. The narrator constantly makes fun of you if you can't read simple signs. Okay. So if you click on a sign that says stop, he'll say, I think you can figure this one out on your own. Whereas generally speaking, he would read whatever is out there. Yeah. And you can also make fun of the narrator when he points out the obvious. So like there's one place where it's always nighttime and every time you enter it, the sun sets. The first time you go in, he says like, oh, the sun sets on this valley. And that's fine. You leave, you go back in again, he says the same thing. And if you go in the third time, he's like, once again, the sun sets. It's like, yeah, isn't that a surprise? You said that last time too. Didn't I mention that? No.
That shit is cool when like they play with the narrator role. Like Stanley Parable is one that I think of.
Yeah.
It's just something that like it knows what you know within the game.
Yeah, this isn't obviously as postmodern because like you can't really play with like narrative conventions in that way. Yeah. But it's very, all the characters in the game are aware they're in games.
Yes.
So like cool. There's plenty of talking to people and talking to the player and that sort of thing. There's lots of weird moments where you get cuts to old 1940s theater bits. Like an example I have in mind,
like vaudeville sort of thing, like, or
the particular moment I have in mind is a point where you acquire a plunger and it's a special item, And there's kind of a moment where you're like, the plunger, what a great item. And then it cuts to this moment where you can see somebody playing like a concert with a bunch of plungers where they lift it and it goes blank, 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 like that.
Well, if anything is going to sell me on this game, a plunger orchestra is sure to be it.
Yeah, it's a very, very odd game. Like, so you go around this land, and let's say, for example, we're going off the good old-fashioned traditional quest where, now it says you have to rescue the dragon, steal the princess, kill the treasure, but actually you just have to kill the dragon. That's all you have to do.
Okay.
So for this, you have to go around and you have to do plenty of stuff. And there's loads of characters wandering around the map. They don't stay in the one place, which I really like. Well, some characters do, but loads of them are just wandering around the game world. And you can talk, cast spells on, or attack any of these characters.
Okay.
Now, some of them are kind of like predetermined. You can't kill them. Like you can, but some of them, like there's one. I remember there's one in particular. There's one character where you can. You have to acquire an item they have, which is a magic wand. And you can either acquire it one way by playing this little mini game, which gives you a little tiny imp to give to him as a friend, which he exchanges for the magic wand.
Again, a classic mechanic.
Exactly. Yeah. Or you can murder him and just take his wand. I mean, that isn't something that's throughout the game, but there's like 2 or 3 occasions of that where you can solve a puzzle.
So you're basically saying there's multiple ways of it.
It's not as integral. Like, this clearly wasn't something that said this is going to run through the entire game. There's lots of ways you can approach every puzzle. Most of the puzzles are set in stone and you have to do things a certain way.
Yeah.
But there are certain instances where you can do it a different way, which is cool.
Is it like, so in terms of mechanics, is it a typical point and click, as in you're collecting items in your inventory?
Yeah,
you have a certain amount of, well, the main thing I got from any point and click games I've played is there's multiple puzzles you can do at one time, and if you get stuck on one, then you can like rotate and do another one and focus on that for a while, sort of thing.
Very, very much so. The main difference that I always found with this game is it's one of the few point and click games where you have a health bar.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, so like you can go around, like I said, you can go around fighting plenty of people, and for the most part, that doesn't really benefit you too much, but it can benefit you. Like, for example, there's ring rates in the game, and you can talk to them and you can get some really funny dialogue out of them. But the main thing, like, do you know in Lord of the Rings the way the ring rates are supposed to sniff out magic rings?
Yeah.
Like there's a bunch of these ring rates, and one of them has like a stuffy nose, and like just like lots of humor comes out of that. Okay. I can't think of specifics, but I remember like it was really funny at the time.
Nerds. Yeah.
But so you can have health. Like there's one point where you're going through the pass of, I can't remember the name of it, but it's like the Moria pass, with snow. So if you go through it, you're losing health as you're going through it because it's so cold.
Okay.
So like, little bits like that, and you can die in it. That's the other thing. Like it's like most point and clicks, you can't die, but in these you can. So like if you,
or at least in the point and clicks you can die in, it can be very frustrating when it does happen.
What do you mean?
As in, I don't know, like Monkey Island doesn't have it, but some of them do. Like if you go down an arbitrary path and you select one item for some reason that kills you, and then you're stuck in a loop. So.
Yeah, well, this one, it's kind of similar, but it happens often enough. See, because there's so many characters wandering around the map, and it's often very tempting just to fight them to see if you can. You can always tell, though, like when you fight someone the first time, like it's the way you fight somebody, you click on this little boxing glove icon, and when you click it, you can immediately tell whether you're going to win the fight or not, because it turns into like, those cartoon clouds of like it's just a cloud of dust,
and fists are coming out,
and like there's like exclamation marks and symbols.
I was going to ask you if it was like a battle system, but
no, it's literally you click on that, there's that little thing, and the health bars, one of them goes down, or maybe both of them go down. But if the character's health doesn't go down at all, then okay, this person can't be killed.
Okay.
But so yeah, like that's basically it. Like, I mean, there's tons of humor behind it. I'm trying to think, is there anything else that like I should probably tell you? There's a bunch of I will say the
that's just our chicken that we have in the room to tell us when Stephen should shut up about this game.
Out of time. Okay, I will shut up. All I can really, it's hard to sell this game based purely on, like, it is just one of the funniest games I've ever played. Like, I could go on and on and on about hilarious things that happen, but constantly funny. Like, so much of the game is based on dialogue and dialogue options. You have to, rejig your conversations for certain situations.
Okay.
Certain people you have to talk to before you talk to other people, and it's consistently hilarious. So, that's about it that I can really give to you.
That's so rare. Sorry, just to stop you, but like that's so rare in games. Like it seems like nowadays when a game is funny, it's almost like a bullet point on the back of the box. This game is funny. Like not like all those other games. Like it's so rare nowadays.
Yeah, no,
it's
this
almost
is
like a selling point or something.
This is pure comedy. Like the guy who wrote the game, he also did. You might have heard of Board of the Rings, or he did a lot of parodies on Lord of the Rings. That was his kind of niche thing.
But that's ripe for parody, really.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I love. There was two characters you can play actually. As one of them is Thidney, which is the TH Thidney, Thidney the lizard bloke, and Sharon the girly, which is that's again.
I love Thidney though. Like
no, Thidney was great.
I like making fun of people with speech impediments.
I loved her because he had a really really strong Scottish accent. And like a really strong one, and I feel like that really contributes to like how funny the game was. Because that accent is so good for jokes in general and swearing and stuff like that. Occasionally,
exactly, yeah.
Like I just remembered actually at one point one of the items you acquire is a child in a cage, and I can't. Oh wait, I remember what you use him for now. You release him into a mad baker's house where he has a mafia of gingerbread men. And the child in the cage is so hungry he eats all the gingerbread men. That's something else that actually happens in this game.
Yeah, okay, no context needed for
that.
That's
You really
grand.
don't. And I'm sure like that is just kind of... I really hope somebody like clicks on this podcast and like just fast forwards. Oh, wait till it gets good. What the fuck is that about? So yeah, that is the game that I have. Pure comedy gold, and I hope you give it a go.
That sounds cool. It does, yeah.
Okay, so tell me, what is your game for me to play? What should I definitely play right now?
You should definitely play a little game called Undertale.
Oh shit. Okay, I know. I already know this is a game.
So you've heard of Undertale.
Of course,
you know about Undertale. So it came out in 2015. Sort of made a pretty big splash when it came out, I have to say, in terms of like it was probably the biggest indie game that came out that year in terms of everything. So a little bit of background. This was written, directed, scored. Basically 90% of this game was done by one guy called Toby Fox.
Right.
Which is, first of all, an amazing achievement by him, I have to say.
There was no one else involved in this?
I think some of the art and some of the the coding element of it was done by someone else, but 90% of this game was one guy, and I think that's sort of a reason why it's so distinct as well. It seems like one voice is being heard throughout this, so that's pretty amazing in of itself.
He's a sort of an auteur in a way.
We'll have to give him another few games to see whether he is, but no, that is interesting because often games are like hundreds of people. Like if you play like a Fallout game, that's like not one person's voice. It's hundreds of different departments coming together, and that is great in of itself. Like I love the Fallout games, obviously, but it is great to see these individual type of games. Like another one is I think is Lucas Pope, who made Papers, Please, would be another game that's like primarily developed by one person. It means they can sort of focus on one idea without too many executives coming and knocking on their door and trying to get them to change things, I guess.
Okay.
So for those who don't know Undertale, it's an RPG very much indebted to Earthbound. I'm not sure if you've played Earthbound.
I've played it briefly.
I'm the same. Yeah.
It's one of those ones that I keep meaning to come back to and play through properly. But I liked it when I played it, so it's.
So it's sort of an RPG. There's going to be random battles, turn-based battles, sort of thing, But the twist with Undertale is you do not have to kill a single enemy throughout the whole game. You can use what, I'm not sure if it's officially called this, but I'd call it the mercy mechanic.
Okay.
So there's always a way to convince an enemy to not kill you or to flee a battle.
That's really cool.
So, and that basically leads to one of the most amazing things about the games is there's two main ways of playing through it. They're known as a genocide run or a pacifist run. Okay. So a genocide run is where you kill everyone and you're evil. Pacifist run is where you save everyone, and the story dynamically changes around you while that is happening.
Is it a given that if you kill everybody you're just evil, like blatantly? There's no way around that, or are you just saying that like just because it's one or the other?
I'm not sure you describe yourself as evil. Yeah, you are evil within the context of the story, but what's interesting is how much it changes. Because like, not to rag on Mass Effect too much, but like, if you choose between the two options in that, like I think it's Paragon and Renegade or something like that, it's the ending isn't going to be too different. Like you're still going to fight the boss at the end and have the same sort of outcome. Whereas in this, it dynamically changes a lot of what happens.
Oh wow!
Like
okay.
for example, we're getting into spoilers here. If you choose a genocide run, a lot of the game will be easy until you get pretty near the end, and you will face one of the toughest bosses ever.
Really?
As a direct reaction to you killing so many characters throughout.
If I ask you how that comes about, is it a huge spoiler?
Yeah, I don't want to get too much into detail about how that comes about.
No, that's pretty cool.
Like, yeah, it's very interesting. It's something you have to experience.
Can I ask you a question now? Simply because I've seen the occasional video of this, but I haven't played this. So this is kind of for myself and for anyone who's listening.
Okay.
I've seen videos of like battles in this, and it's always this like little square rectangle thing, and there's like a heart in the middle of it, and you move through like it's almost like a space shooter sort of thing where you have to avoid stuff. Like, is that different for every battle, or how does it work?
It's almost like an R-type or something like that, where like it's an insanity bullet hell sort of thing happening, and that's a great mechanic to have within it. That's mostly when you're doing a pacifist run, so you're trying to avoid everything they're doing.
But does that come up in every battle?
Yeah, that's every battle.
That's every battle. Yeah. Okay, so is it? I'm trying to get a handle on how the battles work. So like, is it a case of if you avoid like all the bullets in bullet hell, then like that's a pacifist run, or like
that is essential to it. Like you will have to avoid all those bullets, but it's also you have to figure out what the character needs. So as in, let me put it this way: you're fighting. Let's say an enemy you're fighting is a dog soldier, right?
Right.
This game has lots of dogs. It's very cutesy and quirky and
okay.
stuff. Let's say you're fighting a dog. One of your mercy options might be to scratch it behind its ear or something like that.
And how do you do that?
You just select the option and then you scratch it behind its ear. You see, when your turn comes up, you can either attack them or you can do one of these mercy options.
Okay. And like every time you click on like one of the, like say you click like attack or scratch behind its ear, is it a case of, okay, you've picked this option now for you to undertake this option, you have to go through another bullet hell
No, that's only if you're avoiding one of their attacks, basically.
Oh, okay. And like, how does like when you say click attack, is it just kind of like a typical JRPG or something?
No, that's sort of like, it's hard to describe. Like I'll put it up on screen, but it's like a bar going across the scene that you have to time a button press to be in a certain area, and then you attack them for more hit points. Basically.
Right. Okay.
But that's basically the battle system. But that battle system is in itself very inventive and like really unique and a great selling point for the game. But like the rest of the game is amazing. Like it's very funny. Like it comes back to what you were saying about Kingdom of Magic. Like it's very humorous, very irreverent, but also really charming and surprisingly heartfelt at times.
I've heard that. I've heard it's really, really emotional at times.
It can get quite emotional, and I think for all the great things people say about like the art style and the battle system and everything, I think the thing that really makes this game is the fact that it can juggle that tone of humor and irreverence and sort of fourth wall breaking with really emotional, heartfelt scenes and like general themes of acceptance. Like I think the main theme of the game, as far as I got from it, is accepting yourself for what you are.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Can I say two things, right?
You always say, I got a number of things to say.
I've got some little little pointers here.
Go ahead.
First of all, like I totally get what you're saying about the humor and the emotion. I've heard that, and I've heard examples of it, and it sounds like, I'd be in agreement with that. It sounds like it could be very emotional and really, really funny. There's a character, like a skeleton character or skeleton twins or something that I've heard. They're kind
Sans and Papyrus. Yeah, I'll be talking about them.
They're very big into it, I've heard. But you were saying there that it has a very unique art style, and controversial opinion, I don't think it looks that unique. I am actually not pushed on the art style at all. It looks very retro and in a way that doesn't really, stir my nostalgia at all.
Yeah, maybe unique is the wrong word to use, because it is, as you said, retro, and it certainly, as in Earthbound, is a very obvious point of reference for it. But I'd say more than that, it's something that you grow to love throughout the game. Is the art style, and it can subtly be very beautiful. Like there's a section where you're walking along a path that you can't really see, like it's dim, and occasionally it gets illuminated by all these, like, I want to say fireflies or plants that are like fireflies that glow in the dark at times. So like basically the whole screen is dark, but these like glowing little embers throughout it. And there's other elements where there's like rain falling, and then like what do we want from an art style? We want it to be aesthetically pleasing, obviously, but you want it to convey a mood or to reflect whatever the game maker wants you to feel at that time. And this game does that in spades. It might be simple, it might be amateurish looking, maybe deliberately at times, but I think it all lends to its charm at the end of the day.
Yeah, to be fair, I mean, a lot of it is a case of you have to play a game to really get that. I mean, for so many games that are really beautiful to look at, you do have to play them to really get a sense.
And to see them in motion as well. Like,
the second thing I was going to say, it's really your disadvantage that you always pick games that I've heard of and heard things about, whereas I always pick games that you have never heard of. They're always games from like the 90s.
Because I think you come with like a preconceived notion of what you think a game is.
Yeah,
to a certain extent, and whereas I'm like hearing about Kingdom of Magic for
the
first time.
Which nobody, you or anybody else listening to this has ever heard of.
Next time I'll pick an obscure shit game.
I think you should. Pick a game that, like, you know, from your childhood that, like, you thought was great but nobody else ever played.
Rugrats Extreme. Skating.
Oh, God. It's actually, it tells you, like, how bad the gaming industry is. I actually thought that was a real game for about half a second there.
Maybe fucking IGN get on that shit. 10 out of 10.
Do you know what they had? They had Rugrats Golf, but that was part of the main Rugrats game. No, that was a real thing. I remember that. It was...
that's just a mini game.
It was the only part of the game you could play as Susie. So that's
one thing I have to say about this game. Now, it doesn't tie into whether you should play it or not, but it was a huge deal at the time, is how toxic the fans were around this game.
Oh, really? Why?
So basically, like I told you have those two set paths that you can go down during the game. You can either be a pacifist or go on a genocide run. And a lot of time when like a streamer or a YouTuber was playing the game, they'd be killing enemies. Like you're almost taught through your gameplay experiences up to this point to kill any enemy you find in the game. But in this game, it's a bit more of a moral choice more than anything else. And a lot of the time, if like some internet personality was playing the game quote unquote wrong in terms in the way the fans feel, they'd like start spamming abuse at them and telling them they're wrong to be playing it that way. And
Jesus! Okay.
There was also this whole meme about people recommending Undertale, saying, "Oh my god, you have to play this game. This is the best game." And it's almost like the same thing that happened to The Wire, that TV show. It
got so big that like people almost resented it because it was so big.
Yeah, it's like when you get told over and over and over again that something is amazing and you have to play this, and why aren't you playing this? You begin to form a resentment against it, and you sort of don't want to play it, and that's an unfortunate side effect of this game in general. But that shouldn't dissuade anyone from playing it. Like, it is genuinely amazing, and you know, it's a great experience overall. Another note I have to say is the music. Again, all made, composed, written, played by Toby Fox himself, is fantastic.
Yeah.
It sort of simultaneously is a throwback to older JRPG soundtracks, but manages to sound like new and inventive. And maybe I'm wrong in this, but it seems to subtly expand in sound and tone as you go throughout the game. So maybe at the beginning it sounds a bit more 8-bitty and retro, and eventually fills to like full cascades of instruments and like very full tone and stuff like that.
Does it actually have like full orchestra sort of things?
Not a real recorded orchestra, but like I presume he did it at home on his laptop, like everything. But nowadays you can make a laptop sound like an orchestra. Amazing motifs going throughout it. Like a motif is like a repeating phrase or group of notes or melody throughout music. And I've always been interested by the fact that music does a lot of the heavy lifting in retro games when it comes to atmosphere. Like the graphics weren't capable of, I don't know, communicating a tone to the player. So the music would have to fill that gap and tell you, okay, you're in a sad area, or you're in a very...
You're preaching to the choir here. Like, I feel like that is a huge problem with so much of modern gaming. Like, that, like they just do not invest nearly as much in the music.
They generally have a generic orchestral bombastic, and that can be great. Like one of my favorite scores is the Shadow Colossus score, and that's like hugely bombastic and like big orchestra, like operatic sort of stuff happening. But there's a lot to be said by setting a mood and setting a template for player experience through the soundtrack. And this is something this does in spades. Like you said, there may be some people mightn't like the art style, but I guarantee you anyone who listens to the soundtrack will love it. It's
really
amazing.
It's that good.
It's catchy, doesn't annoy through repetition. It manages to be a throwback but at the same time seem new and vital, and it communicates what he wants people to feel more than anything else in the game. Like, the writing is amazing and funny and the characters are great, but the music is the main thing that's stuck with me throughout this whole experience.
Wow, okay. Can I ask you one question now, because it's something that I've realized that we've kind of glossed over a little bit?
Yeah.
What is the actual plot of Undertale?
So you're a kid of indeterminate gender who falls down a hole in the Earth realm, let's say in quotes, and you go into the kingdom of the monsters, and you have to find your way out, but you encounter all these crazy... You learn about the world as you progress, let's say, and you learn about the history of the conflict between monsters and humans, let's say.
Okay.
But it's... Again, the whole hook, the whole grr of it is a lot more complicated than that, is what I'd say.
That sounds I mean, that's grabbed me, because weirdly what that reminds me of is it's almost like what a Ghibli movie would go like.
Shit, yeah, you know what? Like, I never thought of making that comparison, but it's very similar to that sort of vibe in general, to be honest, yeah. So, my favorite part of Undertale is... Like, we're talking about the skeleton boys, so Sans and Papyrus. Just a little, these are a little bit of spoilers coming up, but Papyrus is basically an agent meant to capture humans, but he's pretty bad at his job, and also his heart really isn't in it because he's too kind-hearted to really hurt humans in general. So basically he sets a series of traps for you, and they're all hilarious, and like generally all those traps are my favorite moment, but there's one where you meet him and he's at the other side of this platform, this ice platform, right? And he says, haha, I have you now. And a load of like random color squares start flashing up on this platform in front of you, and he's like, these squares each represent a different thing, and he starts listing like a load of different things you have to do depending on the color of what square you go on, and like they happen really fast, and like you're sort of getting overwhelmed by like, oh, I have to jump on this one, but I have to use a different item on this one, and then move a certain way on this one, and you're thinking, how am I going to pass this puzzle? But eventually when the randomizer stops and the squares settle in a pattern, it's just like a straight line that you can walk straight over to. So you just walk across, and when you get across, he doesn't say anything. He just looks down and walks out of the screen, like really annoyed. And
I love that.
The thing, like the main hook of this game, it's the same as Kingdom of Magic, is the humor. Like Toby Fox knows how to sell a joke, and there's so many different, like there's wordplay and puns throughout the game, but there's also these like just reaction jokes almost. You know?
Feel like that's something that independent developers like just get so much more than studio led like projects. Like, you know, you always get, when independent led stuff, the humor's always better. Simply because you don't have like a group meeting saying like, okay, we're going to have a 5-minute discussion on whether this joke is funny.
Yeah, we need 10 rocket jokes.
Yeah, you know, and it just doesn't work. Like, you get a lot of like really big budget like games that just don't work that way. Like one that now maybe some people disagree with me on this, but one that I felt that really applies to was Sunset Overdrive. Did you play that?
No, I know it seemed a bit too radical.
Yeah,
hey,
you know,
kids.
it was all built towards like, we gotta appeal to the younger crowd, you know, whereas like but like no, but Undertale seems like it really sells that in spades. So like I like just what you're describing there sounds fucking great.
So what's your favorite moment from Kingdom of Magic?
It's kind of tricky to narrow it down with Kingdom of Magic because it's all kind of universally the same. Like it's all like, see, it's all good.
You can only pick one.
I know I can only pick one, and like I know it's the same. Like the thing is, it's all very similar standard, and it's all good. Like there's very very little I'd say is subpar. Part of me really wants to pick just the moment when you call the water elemental a dribbly bastard, because that's
my favorite moment.
That was hilarious when I heard it the first time. But no, I was trying to think of a particular moment, and there's one moment right where you go into the town of Minor Tragedy, which is you know, a piss take on Minas Tirith.
Okay.
But you have a slagging match with an obnoxious little pixie who's about like a foot tall. He's also the high steward of like the town, and the entire slagging match ends with you whipping out the Sword of Normalness, which you asked a ninja to bake into a baguette because weapons aren't allowed into the palace, and chopping him up into literal pieces. And then you replace the steward with a High Steward of Minor Tragedy action figure with movable parts. And this brings peace to the entire kingdom because everybody prefers the action figure to the real person. So
well, that's amazing.
I mean, like, that's just one of many. It's I simply couldn't pick like one point. Just that on paper, that looked like one of the funniest bits. Yeah, so that's one of them. So yeah, that's my favorite moment. Now
that's great. Like, it's such a. I love with point and click games, whenever you describe what you're doing, it always seems ridiculous. Yeah. Like that. Like, exactly, I hit a sword and a baguette because you're not allowed swords in here.
I can't use the skeleton arm with that.
Yeah, I can't lubricate that.
Okay, so the time has come to select a game that we need to recommend with people, and to me it seems pretty fucking obvious. It's 100% Undertale.
It's weird with this one though, because they're probably the most similar games we've got.
This is the close. Yeah, it's the closest I think we've gotten to,
in terms of tone, and like I know yours is a point and click and mine's a RPG, but
it is all about, like, you know, taking a genre and skewing it a little bit. But yours sounds like it does so much more, and it's specifically because it's one person. And it just sounds like it achieves so much. Whereas, like, I mean, I'm not saying don't play Kingdom of Magic, for the love of God. Play that game if you can find it. I don't know how you will, because I think you can only get it on MS-DOS box on, like, most laptops, so it's almost impossible to get to. But on the merit of it being better, and also probably the only one you will be able to play... I'd personally say Undertale.
Maybe, yeah, like, as in availability is a big thing as well. I guess.
Yeah, but I mean, what do you think? Like,
no, yeah, I'm really interested in Kingdom of Magic. I've a love-hate relationship with point and click games in general. Sometimes they can be amazing, but sometimes I remember getting one of the Discworld games and just getting stuck so bad.
Oh, which one was it? Was the first one?
I can't remember, but all I remember is I could carry ice around and it kept melting.
Oh, that was Discworld 2. Yeah, no, that was the best one. Oh man, you'll never get into them.
I'm sorry, but here, Undertale, it does some amazing things. Like, some people think it's maybe a flash in the pan and it's sort of a one-hit wonder sort of thing, but the depth in the mechanics itself and the humor and pathos in the writing is amazing. So
I mean, the fact that it's one person alone really blows me away, because like
mostly,
I mean, mostly, yeah, but like the fact that so many people are still talking about it now, and it just seems like it seems so unique.
Yeah,
it seems like it's really its own thing, like, compared to so many games. Like, I mean, it doesn't seem like any other RPG I've ever played.
Well, obviously it's got that Earthbound influence, but like it seems to have remixed it and made its own sort of mark on it enough that it's a vital purchase as far as I think anyway. But so that's our recommendation, Undertale.
Undertale is the way to go, so definitely check it out. As far as I know, it's on the PlayStation Store. I think it might be on the Xbox One as well.
Yeah, that shit's on Steam.
It's everywhere. Steam, You'll definitely be able to get it. Kingdom Hearts, we have a treasure map somewhere that, like, might lead you to some parts that could download.
Kingdom Hearts?
Sorry, not Kingdom Hearts. Oh God, sorry. We just watched the Squaresoft E3 thing, so that's probably what that's
Square
about.
Enix as well. Yeah. Man, you're living in the 90s.
Oh man, get out of here.
Tubular.
Okay, look, Undertale is the way to go. So I can't even talk properly.
Yeah, buy underwear.
Buy underwear, everybody. Good night.